Merry Christmas, Muench.
Merry Christmas.
How am I going to take you seriously for the next hour?
I don't.
This is why I love you. This is why I love you. No shame in your game, getting everyone in the holiday spirit. But listen, I don't like to speak for Muench, okay? And I am certainly not here to preach. If you want life advice, go see Rosillo and Cerruti. They've got some for you. If you want some serious life advice, I'd take it elsewhere. Certainly not here. But listen, we've been through some stuff in the last few years, right? We've been through some stuff. Nothing that's been, life or career ending, but certainly some stuff. And sometimes, and I was just thinking, I'm getting older now, right? Sentimental around the holidays. Sometimes when life kicks your ass a little bit, you kind of have to regain some perspective and look at what's important. And I'll tell you one thing I've learned. The people in your life who stick with you and are there for you in the times of need, when things aren't great and when you need help, get picked back up off the mat, those are the ones that truly love you. And this is the time at the holidays to pay it back, if you will. Not with presents, but with your presence. So if you're watching this show or listening to this show, I don't like to give advice much, but my advice would be shut it down. Take a couple days, take a couple hours, whatever your schedule can afford you. Try to press the envelope and make sure your schedule can afford you a little bit longer than maybe is comfortable for you. But when you're with the loved ones that you have, or you have to only can send a text or write a letter or shoot a note or make a phone call, do it. Be there, be present, right? Football will be waiting for you on the other side. Your bills and responsibilities will be waiting for you on the other side. The grind will be waiting for you on the other side. Take some time. Enjoy it, whether it's your kids, your parents, your loved ones, your friends, your family. Just take some time this holiday. Enjoy yourself. Take care of yourself, but take care of the people that matter the most to you. That would be my advice. So with that as a backdrop, we debated whether to have a show. Here we are. We're rolling this out on Christmas Day. Full transparency on this show. We're taping it on Monday so that Muench can be with his family. I can jump on a plane and go be with my family and some people that are important in my life. But it's right after the college football playoff. We already had a reaction show to that. It's about it'll be about 6 or 7 days from Christmas until the next round of playoff games. The draft can wait. Daniel Comer, one of our producers who's been critical and vital to this show, came up with a great idea. The 2024 NFL draft. What if we revisit it and redraft it? So we decided, you know what? Brilliant idea. Let's do it. That's what we're going to do. Christmas week, we're going to take a step back from everything that's going on right now, and we're going to have a 2024 NFL redraft. How could we say no to that? So consider this, folks, a special holiday treat on Christmas week. Now, DJ, play me that sweet beat. While Muench has got that cap on and the perfect beard to go with it, and we're in the Christmas spirit, let's take another quick minute. Bill Simmons, Sean Fennessy, Jeff Chow, thank you for welcoming us into the family this year. It's been a huge transition for us. It's been nothing but wonderful, the vast, vast, vast majority of it. Thank you to Juliet Littman, Mallory Rubin, the conversations, the support that you've provided, and especially our team, right? Conor Nevins, who's been like literally the very first voice that we've heard and has helped us put this thing together. And honestly, gave me a little boost like, hey, you can host the show. We don't need to bring in some other host. Like, you can host it. Bring on your guy, Muench. Let's start talking creative. He's been there from the very first step. So we wanted to say thank you and special holiday wishes to Conor Nevins and to Tucker T, our main man. Honest to goodness, Muench, I mean, everyone's critical on this show, but you and I would be doing FaceTime and would be like putting it up on a YouTube channel that would be a disaster. I don't know that I've ever worked with someone who is more diligent, who has been more consistent, who has grinded harder, also has done it with a smile on his face and has been so pleasant, and everything we've asked for, it's like that. So Tucker, cannot thank you enough this Christmas time and holiday time. Daniel Comer, I mentioned him. It seems like once or twice a week he's either bailing us out from a bad idea that I have, or he's coming up with something creative that is making our show better. So Daniel, happy holidays to you and your family. Eduardo Ocampo.
I don't think he sleeps.
I was just gonna say,
we get emails at like 3 a.m. from him. Like,
we get done. We get done at like 1:30 in the morning after those reaction shows. I'll wake up groggy at like 8 a.m. because I fell asleep at 3, and I'll look down and there's these clips that he's already produced, and he sent him at like 6:30. Like, so Eduardo, you and your family, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. He also I'll go on a 5-minute rant, and somehow he'll capture the best 60 seconds and make it sound better than I had any chance of doing. Jack Wilson as well. Thank you. I know you've been behind the scenes helping the show along the way and integral, and as we get ready for the Senior Bowl, the Combine, and the NFL Draft, in putting all those logistics together. So I wanted to take a moment, and as I preach to everyone about taking a moment, being present, being grateful, letting the people in your lives that are supportive of you, make sure that you pay that back. So here we are, Muench. We decided to do a show. Daniel had a great idea. 2024 NFL redraft. We're going to go through the first 16 picks in the redraft. There's some adjustments. We've already kind of gone through it, but I want to go pick by pick and explain where our mindset is. I made the final decisions as mentioned. I typically do. This is what provides us with the best content, whether it's ranking the draft, doing our mock draft. We have conversations. I'll make the decision on some things and put out the list typically, and then Muench will be there to support it or absolutely tear it apart and keep me honest. So we've become a very high functioning checks and balancing act, if you will, over the years. So we will present that to you as if as we have done over the years for 25 years, having these conversations over the phone or in person. So without further ado, let's get to this, the 2024 NFL redraft. All right, man. So the drama begins right here at pick number 1, right?
Right,
absolutely. Caleb Williams was a no-brainer for most people, okay? And I think more so had he been, coming out of the 2022 season than a 2023 season that had some ups and downs. And then Jayden Daniels at LSU, second year after transferring from Arizona State after the 2021 season, puts together a Heisman Trophy winning campaign in 2023. And as we enter the 2024 draft, my point was, and I continue to contend, if you're dropped on this planet and could only watch that one season of tape between Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels, you'd take Jayden Daniels. It's hard to beat what he put on tape for that season, but there's more to it. And when you watch Caleb Williams, it was, I think, because of how successful Patrick Mahomes has been throughout his career, you saw a lot of flashes and similarities in his play style, creativity, the ability to adjust arm angles, throw on the run, off balance, all of those things. It's intoxicating, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there were a lot of people in the league that you talk to who are like, I don't know. We're having real serious discussions and debates in our draft rooms about which one's the best quarterback prospect. I think playing to his benefit, the fact that he went to a very similar system in Cliff Kingsbury to what he had his final year at LSU, there was familiarity there. I don't know that the weapons and talent are better around the quarterback position in Washington than they are in Chicago. Certainly the pass protection has been. Most importantly, the stability of the organization, which is shocking to say, as you think about the Washington Commanders and their history with Daniel Snyder and all the coaching changes and everything else, how quickly they've been able to become a stable organization with Dan Quinn as the leadership, the new ownership above him, and the support that they're getting. That's pretty remarkable. We're not here to do an analysis on the Bears versus the Commanders. We are here to redraft. I'm going to go with, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say. There it's happening. You can hear the music with Santa Claus in the background. Jayden Daniels would be the first overall pick. Chicago Bears. They had to redo it. Unfortunately, here's the thing. Unfortunately, given the fired head coach, fired offensive coordinator, offensive line they can't protect, receivers are not playing to their big name status, if you will. I don't know that Jayden Daniels would be able to have a whole lot more success than Caleb Williams, but I think after watching just about a full season in the NFL, Jayden Daniels feels like the right decision here. Not safer, not better. No, it's not a clear cut who's the better talent and all those things. But Jayden Daniels seems like the right decision at number one if we were to redraft today.
Yeah, I can. There's no argument for me there. I mean, you just look at the season that he's had. Really the last two seasons he's had when you go back to his last year in college. I just can't debate it. I think it was really close, like you said, coming in between him and Caleb. And Jayden just has outplayed him this year. Now, long term, we'll see what happens. I still am very high on Caleb. I still think he's got a very bright future, and we'll get into that in a minute. But that being said, I think you just have to give Daniels the nod right now. I mean, even yesterday, that come from behind win against the Eagles, and I know that Hurts was out. I get all that, but just the plays that he's made this year and the belief that he's instilled. Yes, look, that organization has done a great job of turning itself around quickly. He's a big part of that. I mean, the belief that those players and his teammates have in him that he's going to make a play, that he's going to get them to, find a way to win a game for them, I think is a big part of that organization turning around. So, yeah, I mean, I think we're going to talk about a lot of good quarterbacks. I think that Jayden's had the best year. So Jayden, and he was one of the top two coming out last year. I think Jayden deserves to be the first overall pick.
Yeah, I agree. You know what's interesting? We'll just spin this thing forward. I think it's more of a discussion of would you take Jayden Daniels or Drake Maye at one than it is would you take Jayden Daniels or Caleb Williams at one.
Yeah, I promise I'm not going to agree with everything you say right now, but I agree. That one I do. Drake Maye, I mean,
let's just get to it. Pick number
right.
2, Washington Commanders. They can't. I mean, Commanders fans would be devastated if we actually had a redraft. Thank goodness it's just never going to happen. And it's not a reality, and that's why we're doing this as a Christmas holiday special. But Drake Maye would be my pick at number 2 for Washington.
Right. I don't know if people are paying attention to the Patriots because, and I there's no other way to say it, this team stinks. They stink. Their offensive line is a mess.
Yep.
The guys that he's throwing to, I don't know if people outside of this area of the country know who they are. Like, do they know who Pop Douglas is? Do they know who Keyshawn Boutte is if they weren't LSU fans? Like, I don't know if they know these guys. And the way he's played, I mean, yesterday, another example. I mean, the future is bright for
who are viewing or listening to this on Christmas or the following days. Yes, we did, and as I already said, full transparency, I got to remember we taped this on Monday. So when Muench says yesterday, he's referring to Sunday. Go ahead.
Apologies. Yeah, but he's just, I mean, every time you watch him, it's unreal. And I think he reminds me, again, I've said this before, he reminds me of Justin Herbert, the Chargers quarterback. His ability to make plays with his feet, his accuracy, his arm strength, his confidence, his poise. I mean, they went into Buffalo and no one thought they had a chance this past Sunday. And he just played extremely well. I think that when you're looking at him, he's again been the second best quarterback. And again, these were guys that I thought there was clearly 3 coming out of college last year. I did have Williams and Daniels ahead of Maye, but he was one of those top tier quarterbacks. So it's not that surprising. So yeah, to me, I think it is more of a Maye versus Daniels conversation. I'm still taking Daniels, by the way. I still think Daniels has the edge. So I'm with you on that. But Maye has certainly put himself in that conversation.
You know, one of the difficult parts of this job is, like, for me at least, I know you're still a Patriots fan, unapologetic, and Kuiper's still a Ravens fan, and for whatever reason, because you're in you're watching the sausage get made and all that stuff. I grew up a Patriots fan. I grew up in New England, up in Swampscott, Massachusetts, and I'm a diehard Patriots fan for all the years that they sucked. And then when I took over this job and started to get to know people in the league and all the other things, and I no longer was a fan of any team, right? And So it's interesting, still living here. But being like talking to people and quite honestly, like texting with Bill Simmons now, like kind of makes me want to go back to just being a Patriots fan.
Right.
It's like the passion and the excitement, and obviously spoiled for so many years after having to grind through childhood with these terrible teams with bags over our faces in the stands, like all the misery, but then to feel it again. And now to see, wait, we did the hardest part of recovering and rebuilding as an organization is finding the quarterback. And I was texting with Bill again last night. It's like, it's, if you're stuck in this circumstance, it's kind of best case. You keep watching your quarterback like prove to you week in and week out that he's a star, that he is the future, and you got your guy, and that's the hardest part. But you're still losing games. So now they're up with the Raiders winning a game against Jacksonville. Now
Right.
they're elevated to the number 2 spot. And if they can keep playing well but losing the last couple of weeks, they could have the number 1 or number 2 overall pick when this thing's all said and done. And he's already talking, will teams be looking to trade up for if Shador goes 1, will Cam Ward and all that stuff. So it's intriguing if you're a Patriots fan because you're going to have an early pick. Maybe you get to move down and get multiple picks in a draft that has a lot more depth than it does elite talent at the top and start to surround Drake Maye with the guys he needs. But for these purposes, we've got Jayden Daniels going number 1 to Chicago for redrafting, and Drake Maye, despite not starting early in the season, despite losing a lot of games, despite not having the weapons around him and the passing production not looking great, I think he very clearly has been the second best quarterback in terms of what you're seeing on the field and what you think it could provide in the future. Bo Nix has been the second best quarterback of this rookie class on the field this year. He's played long.
We'll get to that.
Bo Nix, but Drake Maye is the second most promising in terms of the future. All right, Patriots fans. It's interesting, right? When you get to the number 3 pick with the Patriots, if we're redrafting, it's interesting to me for some reason that if I were to tell you back in April, you get Caleb Williams at number 3, people would be dancing in the streets here. We move it forward to December, late December, and if we had to redraft and they had to hand over Drake Maye, here you go, take Drake Maye. We'll take Caleb Williams at the number 3 pick, play that music. Here's what's interesting. I think this is where the discussion becomes intriguing. I went with Caleb Williams here, right? But there are a lot of people who will say, well, what about Bo Nix? Why not Bo Nix with the number 3 pick ahead of Caleb? He's clearly outplayed Caleb. Caleb, what would you have done here, Muench?
It's Caleb by a wide margin. Okay. And I think the Patriots fans should still be dancing in the streets. And I get it. Look, I don't know what the losing streak for the Bears is. They haven't won since they beat Jacksonville in the middle of October. By the way, Williams hasn't thrown an interception since then either. I cannot stress you. We look at that situation coming into the year and we're like, oh, he's got great receivers and the offensive line's pretty good. And, he's in a great position. Well, it ends up no, because the organization's a mess. And go try and win in that organization if you're Bo Nix. Let's switch spots for Bo Nix and Caleb Williams and tell me who's going to be doing better right now. If Caleb Williams has Sean Payton in Denver, do you think he could beat the teams that Bo Nix has beat, which we'll get into later on? I don't know if you really want me to go fully off on Bo Nix because I don't think he should be the 4th quarterback taken. I'm gonna go ahead and say that right now. Yeah, so we'll get into that in a little bit later. But I'm not. Listen, don't panic with Caleb yet. I know I've seen the clips of him running around and trying to do too much like he did in college, and that's not going to translate. It's been kind of more of a mess than people realized it was going to be in Chicago coming into the year. I would be psyched if I was New England and I was getting Caleb Williams because I don't really think that it's Caleb Williams' fault that he hasn't done that well yet. I think he's been put in a tough situation, and I think there's been flashes, and you're a young quarterback and you're trying to figure out that's going to happen. I think he plays in a tough division. I think that's part of the deal here. So when you look at a guy who's getting, guys are getting fired around him, and I don't think it's his fault. I would be psyched if I was New England and I was getting Caleb Williams, who we all thought 4 months ago is going to be, a franchise quarterback, and who I still think will be a franchise quarterback.
Interesting. Some good stuff there, Muench. Good stuff. Yeah. So let's look at the first 3 picks. Bears taking Jayden Daniels, Commanders taking Drake Maye, Caleb Williams going 3 to the Patriots. A lot. I mean, huge difference in terms of what the future and what the present would look like with those quarterbacks in the different order. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we get to pick 4 with their Arizona Cardinals, and nothing has changed in terms of the board and what's available. Okay. I said going into last year's draft, I would take Malik Nabers slightly ahead, like almost identical grades, different receivers to a certain extent, different receivers, body, build, all of that. Nabers more explosive. I thought he was the most explosive playmaker in the entire draft class. I thought in terms of route running, physicality, just being built for the NFL, Marvin Harrison Jr. is, second to none. Both phenomenal prospects coming out. I would have taken Nabers slightly ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. It would have been obviously a big discussion in the draft room. If I was general manager, I would have listened to both sides, but I would have leaned Nabers. I still today would take Malik Nabers after this rookie year. To be what it to put up the numbers and to have the success that Nabers has had, and he's frustrated. He's not going to hold anything back. He's letting everyone in the New York media and national media know. And you know what? I love that. Like, he's the ultimate competitor. And yeah, there are some scouts who are like, he can be a headache. If things aren't going well, he can be an absolute headache. I don't mind that. As long as it's not a huge distraction and causing problems, I think someone needs to kick some ass in that organization. Like the standard has to be better than the standard with the Giants.
Wait, a talented receiver is bitching about how many touches they get. I mean,
not even about
you hear that all the time.
Yeah, and it's not even about the touches as it is like just how incompetent we are. Right?
Right.
So anyway, with that as the backdrop, Malik Nabers would be the number 4 pick for the Arizona Cardinals. I considered, some other players. Joe Alt's still sitting there in a phenomenal year there. But they need outside, like Marvin Harrison Jr., 51 catches, 726 yards, 7 touchdowns. He's been the best receiver by far, despite a slow start. And there's like after him, it's not pretty. And so if you put in Malik, he'll provide more production, I think, more explosiveness. But it's not like you can go in a different position if you're asking my opinion. I think they picked the right position. They didn't make a wrong decision by any stretch of the imagination. Sure, they absolutely love Marvin Harrison Jr., and they should. But if we had to redraft it, I would take Nabers at 4.
Right. And you would have done that before the year. I had Harrison. Again, I had the same grade. I had Harrison slightly ahead of Nabers, so I would have taken Harrison before the year. I'd take Nabers now. I just think he's looked more explosive. But it's close. It's still close. So
yeah, it is. It is. I struggle with it still because I don't take it lightly that we're just going to swap out a receiver, because I recognize the fan base has a passion for their team and the players on their team. But if you're making a business decision, I think Nabers is the right decision here.
Right. And you're not just drafting players who've had the best rookie seasons. You're spinning this forward. You're looking at right. So let's keep that in mind too.
All right, number 5 pick, LA Chargers. Like, how do you go any other direction than Joe Alt?
Finally, a big man.
Yeah. He's been, Santa loves it. He's been, and if you're not watching this on YouTube, let me describe the outfit for that. He's got his Santa hat on. He's got a little that winter red going in his face. Like, it's almost like, he
Richmond red, baby.
Then he's got the white beard, just au naturel. He didn't have to color that baby or put something on with some tape. Au naturel. And then is it a spider? Yeah, spider's red. I mean, It's full on outfit. It's wonderful. But Chargers at number 5, Joe Alt has been sensational. I mean, absolutely sensational. We knew coming out he was, up there with some of the highest grades we've given to offensive tackles. How do you go in a different direction? And what he's meant for that team, the protection of Justin Herbert, the run game when they've needed it at times, although it has not been as consistent as they've wanted. But ultimately, if you're drafting an offensive tackle at 5, when you've got a relatively young quarterback, the number one priority is protecting that guy, and he's done that at an unbelievably high level.
always seem to be destined to be a Harbaugh guy. It just makes sense. You know, it's
Yeah.
one of those perfect marriages. You know, I'm not sure there's that much to talk about. He's been the best rookie offensive lineman, certainly the best rookie offensive tackle, and fills a need, fits what they do. Just checks all the boxes for that pick. That's one of those ones when you're going through your mock, you're like, yeah, okay, we can just go on here. All right, that one's easy. Let's just go.
Yeah. But this is where it gets interesting. This is where it gets spicy. This is where I started to be like, oh shit, we got a project on our hands. New York Giants picking at 6. The pick is in. I'm taking Bo Nix here. And it sounds like Muench is gonna knock this a little bit. Let's say this. Bo Nix, the New York Giants obviously took Malik Nabers. But at that point, they still were delusional on Daniel Jones. I don't get a lot of things right, but like somewhere in my feed, it popped up or me screaming to Scott Van Pelt the other day about how Daniel Jones was one of the all-time reaches and a critical mistake. And the fact that they then doubled down on it with different leadership in the organization and paid the money that they paid to keep Daniel Jones and extend him, it's been the whole Daniel Jones experience has been baffling to me.
Yeah, so, that clip is from the year they drafted him, right? That clip.
It was from 20 minutes after the first round wrapped up, and I went on Scott Van Pelt on his show. It was immediate, and I said the same things on the draft on the broadcast, but it just so happened. I don't know why it just popped up. Someone had reposted it. But yes, I was on with Van Pelt and just torched that pick. And so, again, I've been wrong on plenty of guys, and we'll get through all of them, I'm sure, on the McShay Show over the years. But the Giants, to me, should have taken a quarterback this year. They went with Malik Nabers. I couldn't knock that pick because I love Malik, and he's been great, and you love having him moving forward. But knowing what they now know, took them too long to know that Daniel Jones is not the guy. He's out of town. I think you have to take a quarterback here. Bo Nix on the board, Michael Penix Jr. on the board, J.J. McCarthy on the board. I went with Bo Nix because of the success, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say if Nix was performing without Sean Payton and without that Denver team.
Yeah, well, let's just look at how he. First of all, let me start by saying this. I was low on Bo Nix coming into the draft. I thought he was more of a late first, early second round guy. I had questions like I think a lot of other people did. He has exceeded expectations. Bo Nix has played well this year. I'm not trying to, this isn't I don't like Bo Nix or that I don't think Denver fans should be kind of excited about what they've got. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that the 6th overall pick is still a little rich for me. And let's look at a couple things, okay?
Okay.
5 picks over his last 3 games. He's kind of cooling off. He had a 4-game win streak. We're all excited. Who did he beat during that 4-game win streak? Atlanta, the Raiders, Cleveland, and Indianapolis. Against, he was unreal in the Atlanta game. Unreal. Unbelievable game. But the other games, he hasn't been great. I mean, he's 22nd in the league in QBR. This just feels like to me that this is an example of a guy exceeding low expectations and people getting excited about him. And then when you start digging in on the record and you start digging in on some of his games, it doesn't look as good. Completed fewer than 60% of his passes in 6 games this year. There's been times where you've seen him miss throws that you normally should make. I think that Bo Nix is a back-end starter in the league. I think he's going to be right where he is now. I think he's kind of reached. I mean, you don't look at Bo Nix and
it's
and
his
look
rookie
at Caleb
year,
Williams.
though, Muench.
It's great. No, listen. We should all be happy for him, and we should all be whatever. But we're talking about a team that's 9-6 and can't beat anyone in their division other than the Raiders. They can't beat Kansas City. They can't beat the Chargers. Is this the guy? This is one of those players you're going to look at in a few years and be like, man, he was good, but he never got us over the hump. That's how I feel about Bo Nix. And if I'm taking a guy at 6,
you calling him
I
Tim
want a
Tebow?
guy. No. Okay. All right. It's Christmas. Are we really going to do that?
No,
We're
you're
taking
right.
shots like that. No, I'm not calling him Tim Tebow. I'm calling him maybe like a Kirk Cousins. Maybe that's what he is. Maybe he's a guy that plays really well, has good years, but I'm not sure I'm excited about him leading my team to a championship. And that's all I'm saying. If you're taking him at 6, that seems a little early for me. And again, great year. He's exceeded expectations. He deserves all the credit that he's getting. But let's just keep it in perspective. Let's not get carried away. The teams that he's beaten are Atlanta. He's beaten the Raiders twice. He beat, their best win is Tampa earlier in the year. They beat the Jets by 1, and everyone was like, wow, look what they did. They beat the Jets. Well, the Jets stink. The Jets weren't who we thought they were going to be coming into the year.
Yeah.
New Orleans, Carolina, these are the teams that he's beating. Like, he's not beating the other playoff teams. Do we have expectations that Denver's going to get into the playoffs and make a serious run? I don't.
No.
So, let's just keep
I think you make a good point. Like with Jayden Daniels, Drake Maye, Caleb Williams more flashes and hope of organizational stability moving forward. But with those guys, you can envision them carrying an organization, getting in a situation where enough support around them, enough weapons around them, enough protection in front of them, where they can rise up and become, I don't know, elite, but damn good starting quarterbacks in the league, capable of kind of carrying a team in the playoffs. I envision that already, which is amazing. By the way, take a step back real quick. Pretty amazing that you can say that. And Caleb's a little bit of a reach, I understand. But pretty amazing that one quarterback class, already there's this much excitement about 3-4 guys that we're legitimately, typically if we were to do this redraft process late December, season's almost over, these quarterbacks would be falling, not rising up, okay? Or at least staying the same at the top of the board. That's pretty remarkable, and it's an unbelievable positive for the NFL moving forward. But to my point, I can envision Jayden Daniels, Drake Maye, Caleb Williams with the right support around them, a couple years experience. With the salary cap, the fact that they're not making second, third contract money, the ability to go out and sign free agents and to be aggressive early in their first 5 years of their rookie contract, I can envision them carrying a team in a couple years from now to a deep playoff run. I think Denver would have to be pretty damn close to perfect. When you start talking about in a division that includes, obviously, Patrick Mahomes and includes Josh Allen and includes, you talked about Justin Herbert, and includes Lamar Jackson. Like, they would have to do things organizationally in terms of their personnel, free agency, and the draft for the next 2 years, to where maybe in year 3, year 4 with Bo Nix, they're so damn good around him that he just has to play at a Brock Purdy level with a Brock Purdy type 49ers team. That's right. The path I can envision. It's a Purdy with Christian McCaffrey and Bosa and Ayuk and Debo, and you know what I mean? An off line that's outstanding. Like, I can envision that path, but it's so rare to be able to build that kind of thing.
Yeah. And you
has done it with Brad Holmes. John Lynch did it with San Francisco, but there's 32 teams, and that's only 2 that you're talking about that have unbelievably complete rosters, you know?
Yeah, and you made the reference, and maybe we're overstating it, but which one of these quarterbacks other than Daniels, if you put with Sean Payton, would be doing better this year? I think Drake Maye would be better with Sean Payton. I think that Caleb Williams would be better with Sean Payton, and maybe I'm overstating it, but there's a little bit of that. Yeah, there's a little bit of a bias there of how good he is with quarterbacks.
All right, so that's that's an interesting conversation. I think he's the most intriguing of all of them, because I think we all agree the wins and losses look better than maybe the play has been. There's been a lot of turnovers and mistakes, but he's outplayed what any of us thought. So it sounds like
absolutely.
It sounds like spilt milk when we say pump the brakes. It does. Let's just call it what it is.
Fair, yeah. No, it does. It sounds like I'm bitter.
But has he played? I just want to admit it. He has absolutely outplayed what I thought he was going to do as a rookie in the NFL based off of my evaluation in college. Okay.
100%.
So Bo Nix is the pick at number 6 for the New York Giants. Tennessee Titans now. Again, we have the foresight. It becomes hindsight.
Important.
Now, right? foresight becomes hindsight in this situation, knowing that Will Levis is not the guy. Again, I've gotten a lot of guys wrong. I will admit my faults as much as I, will get Tommy John surgery for patting myself on the back. I never saw Will Levis as a savior in Tennessee, and I think that their recent decision to bench him, I think they're coming to that conclusion as well. So if we're redrafting and you have the ability to look back on this season, I think Tennessee absolutely would steer away from taking J.C. Latham, the offensive tackle, and go in a different direction. I truly believe that. I think Michael Penix Jr. would be the pick. What do you think?
I love the position, and again, it's with hindsight. It's knowing what's unfolded. I like Penix Jr. here or shortly hereafter. I would go with McCarthy. I think that McCarthy's injury kind of muddies the waters, but I was really higher. I was just higher on him coming out, and Penix looked good yesterday. We don't really have much of a sample size with him like we do with Bo. So that kind of affects things too, but I think the position's absolutely right. I would stick with the guy that I had coming out, who I thought was a little bit better in McCarthy. I thought McCarthy, everyone wants to talk about how Michigan ran the ball. Yeah, that wasn't his fault, in my opinion. Their offensive line was really good at run blocking and really bad at pass blocking. Just watch the Penn State tape from last year. They had to run the ball. So to me, I loved McCarthy as an intermediate thrower. I thought he was tough. I thought he played in a lot of big games. I feel the same way today. So if you're going to take a quarterback, I would take McCarthy. I don't hate Penix Jr. going there, though. I think either way, you're getting a pretty good player.
Yeah, I absolutely struggled with it, to be honest, because I had JJ ahead of Penix. So it's almost like you saw one game where he was good, not great, and they had 2 pick sixes. So like the pressure was off of him in that one game. The injury concerns me a little bit with JJ. Slight frame.
Fair.
Coming into a rookie year, don't get to play at all. You're not able to like practice and do the things that, and I get it. Like as a backup quarterback in the NFL, you're not getting a whole lot of reps. And I know JJ's in the meetings and doing all the right things. But I guess just because Penix now will have, 3 games to lean on next year, at least if they don't make the playoffs. Being out there every day drilling, I don't know. It would be a tough call, like certainly a tough call. I didn't take it lightly, but I just get the sense, the excitement they have in the building for him. I just get the sense that Penix Jr. is going to wind up making Atlanta really happy for the decision they made. I don't think he's going to be great. I don't. I think there's a cap. I think when teams start to figure out some of his trends and the lack of mobility and where to attack him, as we saw late in the playoff last year, I think that he didn't have a great game. He had a solid game. I think there will be ups and downs as you would expect early in a career. But it's just a slight lean based off the injury for JJ and all that. But I think the more important part is, quite honestly, that now you're looking at Michael Penix going this early in Tennessee, for Tennessee knowing now how frustrating it would be. Think about this. If you're Tennessee, you had Will Levis, you come into this year, you take a step back, like, is he really our guy? I didn't see anything from his rookie year where I was like, there were moments where it's like, yeah, but we knew he was going to do that. But with the turnovers in college, the injury history in college, the inability to layer the ball and touch and all, and you're staring down the gun barrel at number 7 of all these quarterbacks. And I get it. They maybe didn't have the grade on the quarterbacks that some other people did, but you still had at that spot, Michael Penix. Well, no, you didn't, because they were picking it. Yeah, no, they were picking it at 7. Penix went 8. Yeah. So they had Michael Penix Jr., who was a surprise. I don't want people to think like, oh, well, they didn't know. Atlanta took him a lot higher than we expected. But on my board, it was J.J. McCarthy still available. And so you would have him in year 2 instead of being in a tough situation. Michael Penix Jr. was still there, and Bo Nix was still there, right?
Yep.
Bring one in and have him compete. See what happens. Will Levis, if they drafted JJ, Will Levis would have had a year to show what, I mean, they wouldn't have known he would have been injured, but let him compete. And now you're in a situation, unfortunately, and teams do this. They look ahead. What's coming up in the next year's quarterback class? And so Shedeur Sanders,
I was going to bring this up. You're right.
Cam Ward was a third, fourth rounder. Like there was not this projection of guys coming up in the 2025 draft. So Tennessee's one of those teams where they really, by not having vision and not taking a chance on one of these quarterbacks, may have set themselves back a little bit.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that, because we're going to get to Atlanta at 8. Might as well just jump into this a little bit.
Yep.
Is how much, and I personally, I mean, a lot of people did, and I was certainly one of them, looked at that decision to take Penix Jr. after giving Kirk Cousins $100 million and was like, what are they doing? Like, how are you managing your assets? Like, I don't understand. You have so much now invested in that quarterback position, and look what's happened. I mean, Cousins just hasn't played well. All reports are they're going to cut him before they have to give him that $10 million bonus.
Yep.
And I do think they could have handled that better. Let's be clear. I don't think that was the best decision they could have made. But quarterback has to be that spot you take care of. It has to be. So if the Falcons were willing to do that, and it may end up paying off for them that they took Penix at that spot, Tennessee with Will Levis certainly consider taking a quarterback.
Great point. That's clip that off. That's a phenomenal point. Truly, that is a phenomenal point, because a lot of time, general managers get paid a good amount of money to make tough decisions that may not make everyone in the building happy. And certainly, who cares? No offense, but who cares if it's going to make the fans happy right away? It's their job to rise above the fray, to look at the future of the organization, creating stability in the most important spots. And then there's no more important position than quarterback. Atlanta showed vision. Yes.
Right.
They handled it poorly. PR standpoint, not done well. But they showed vision. Cousins is coming off the Achilles injury. We don't know what the future holds. Paid too much probably for Cousins, but we're not certain that Michael.
They had to pay him that to get him. Like,
correct.
Who else? You had to pay to get that. And it's nice.
And had it worked out, we'd be like, yeah, great decision. Heading to the playoffs. Kirk Cousins, he's rounding into shape. He's getting better every week.
Right.
But it wasn't the case, and so there was vision in the front office. It may not work out. Nothing's guaranteed, especially with an aging quarterback coming off an Achilles injury. We got this quarterback class that's loaded. We've identified that we like Michael Penix Jr. better than other people. I don't care what other people. We've identified this is our guy. Let's take him here. And so now what is a disaster financially, cap space, and all the other things, it's not such a big disaster because they made that move. Tennessee didn't.
Right.
Tennessee didn't. And now they're in a tough spot moving forward because there ain't a savior coming out in this quarterback class that they're going to be able to get. And so now you're looking at the 2026 draft or bringing in a free agent. All right, let's move on. We're going to pick up the pace here. Atlanta, we already basically touched. Atlanta, they lose their quarterback in Penix Jr., J.J. McCarthy, Penix Jr. over J.J. McCarthy, but J.J. sitting there, we don't know what we have. All we know, the only information we have really out, that's in addition to what we had coming out of Michigan is that he's coming off of an injury. I mean, truly.
That's it. Right.
No. And so, but that injury isn't majorly concerning moving forward. So I think J.J. McCarthy's the pick for Atlanta.
6 quarterbacks in the top 8 clearly is an indication that we don't love the 2025 quarterback class, to me.
Because it's an indication of that, but it's also an indication of how great this quarterback class was.
True. It's a cocktail of things, but I also think that that's a factor in this. And you kind of alluded to that too. Mm-hmm. We don't love this class that much. Now, if you're looking back at this, you're going to wait 2 years, or you're going to take a guy and see what you got in 2 years. So I think that people will be like, wow, 6 quarterbacks in the top 8 picks.
That would be a record, by the way. Daniel let us know. That would be the most quarterbacks taken in the top 8. Yep.
Right. That just makes sense. Great class. Don't love next year's class. We're talking about a 2-year gap. Take a guy, see what you got. So I don't hate that.
The McShay Show is brought to you by FanDuel. The playoff is bigger than ever. There's 8 teams left, and you can still win big on FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can score $250 in bonus bets. Just place any $5 bet and you'll get $250 in bonus bets if you win.
Use your bets on spreads, live bets, overs, unders, and so much more.
Plus, when you win, you'll get paid instantly. Just visit FanDuel.com/McShay to download America's #1 sportsbook. Must be 21 or older and present in select states, or 18 and older and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com.
All right, Bears at number 9. They already had the first overall pick. We're giving them Jayden Daniels. Marvin Harrison Jr. falls a little bit. He's still available when they pick in this spot. I would go with Harrison Jr. They took Roma Dunze, so clearly wide receiver was a position. It ain't gotten any better at wide receiver. Offensive line is a mess. You can make the argument J.C. Latham is still here. Do you take him? Been okay this year, but I don't. I want a special player at number 9. Now I've got a quarterback in Jayden Daniels. I'm looking at we need offensive line help. There's no question. But I don't know that Latham is going to change our organization. And I know not as much as Marvin Harrison Jr. would, having a weapon for a young quarterback moving forward. Marvin Harrison, as I mentioned, 51 catches, 726 yards, averaging over 14 yards per catch, 7 touchdowns this year, got off to a slow start. I think that would be the right decision for the Bears at 8.
Did you consider Brian Thomas Jr.?
I did. Okay. I certainly did. I'm glad you brought that up. I certainly did.
That's a debate.
Yep.
I'm not taking the Thomas Jr. side necessarily, but he's certainly entered the conversation. He's certainly played well enough to be in that mix at that pick.
I totally agree. You know, he would move up significantly from 23 to number 9 overall, but I'd have no problem at all. And I'll give you a little preview. He's in the top 16 picks for us as we start to move forward. All right, the Jets now at 10. I remember talking to Joe Douglas before and how torn, not torn. Torn's not the right word. Just work in the process. Brock Bowers is so damn good,
right?
And would make the instant impact. But what's the one thing that could derail us the most if we can't protect an aging quarterback coming off the Achilles injury? The depth in offensive line was not good, and they brought in some veterans. They wound up taking the offensive tackle coming out of Penn State, Olu Fashanu. But Brock Bowers was like 1 and 1A and recognized the talent there. I think if they had to redo it for this year, it wouldn't have mattered. I mean, so many other issues with the Jets. We don't have to get tied up. We've done enough on that already. But I think the Jets at number 10 would take Brock Bowers. So Bowers would move up from 13 to number 10. With that team, with those quarterbacks, he's become only the 3rd rookie tight end in NFL history with 1,000 receiving yards. He did that this past week in the win over the Jaguars, which will likely cost the Raiders when it comes to trying to get their quarterback of the future, ironically, in this year's class. So I think Bowers is a no-brainer at 10 for the Jets.
I think he's also the first rookie tight end to have 100 catches. I mean, he's 8th in receiving in the league right now. And again, you mentioned the quarterbacks. I mean, you cannot have that conversation without talking about those quarterbacks.
Yes.
I mean, Gardner Minshew, O'Connell, Desmond Ritter. Like wow. And he's one of those things where you're at the beginning of the year, you're like, what's this guy's ceiling? Well, he's hitting it. He's already hitting it. He's just a weapon. If you're a fantasy football player, you either want him on your team or fear him every time he shows up on your opponent's roster. He's just unbelievable.
Truth be told, if you were able to make the decision now, quite honestly, you're trading, and we can't make trades in this, but you're trading up and going to get one of those quarterbacks. Can you imagine Aaron Rodgers back in April if you traded up to go get a quarterback? I mean, the beauty in that.
Yeah, we're bringing in the kid from Michigan.
Get what you deserve after this year. All right, so now Minnesota, number 11. If we had to redraft this thing, They took a quarterback in JJ McCarthy. It's good for the future. I actually think it could be a negative for the future, and we don't have to get into that today. We have plenty of time leading up to the draft to discuss all these teams, their needs, current state. But for the Vikings, I know the money will be different and you'd have to pay him, but Sam Darnold, if you have something that you can tangibly see, I don't see JJ McCarthy. To be quite honest with you, from a talent perspective, I think Sam Darnold is more talented.
Just don't overthink it. You know what you have right now, and you have a guy who's.
But everyone you talk to is like, yeah, JJ's the guy. We're gonna, move on from Sam. I'll be interested to see how that plays out. But bottom line, six quarterbacks go in the top 8. Drafting a quarterback is not even it's not a possibility, and it shouldn't even be a conversation. Quinyon Mitchell has had one of the greatest rookie cornerback seasons that I've at least ever witnessed. The dude is like running. Did you see Brewski's breakdown this past week?
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Quinyon Bay, baby. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like the way he's running routes for these receivers, the instincts, where his eye placement is, body control. He is a true shutdown corner. I mean, I know Sauce was awesome as a rookie, so you don't have to go way back. But there's something complete about his game that I love. So for the Vikings, and it seems like the Vikings always have cornerback need when we get to the draft, and it remains a position that they could upgrade. I think Jared Verse I want to mention Jared Verse has been one of the 5-7 best rookies, and we'll get him off the board here soon. You could make a little bit of a case there, but Quinyon Mitchell, he's been sensational. So the Vikings at 11 would get Quinyon.
How did the Eagles get him at 22? That kid was the 10th best player on my board last year. I said it the night of. I was like, this is the biggest steal of the draft. When they got him at 22, I was like, this is the biggest steal of the draft.
Yeah, I know. I'm just looking down the list right now. He was the first defensive back. I was just looking to see if there was another.
Yeah, he was.
He was the first defensive back, but the fact that he fell all the way was pretty wild. And then Terrion Arnold went 2 picks later as the second DB. All right, pick 12. Broncos would be devastated, maybe more so than any other franchise in this scenario. I mean, the Patriots would be bummed, but I think because the Giants would take a quarterback at 6 with Bo Nix, because the Titans would take a quarterback at 7, and because the Falcons would still take a quarterback, even a much bigger need than they even thought in April, take a quarterback there at 8. There's no opportunity to take one here if you're the Denver Broncos. How different would this organization look this year?
Yeah,
they didn't draft Bo Nix. We talk about all the negatives and let's pump the brakes a little bit on Bo Nix. But my goodness, without him, I had them taking Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver out of LSU. But this is a nightmare scenario, and it has nothing. Like Brian Thomas is moving up, as I mentioned, from 23, where he was picked, to 12 in this case. Leads rookies with 9 receiving touchdowns. He's been awesome, absolutely awesome for the Jaguars, considering too the offensive woes and the quarterback play this year. You certainly wouldn't be mad at this if you're the Broncos. They need a wide receiver. It's the right pick given the situation, but it would suck.
Right? What else is there to say? I mean, you're just right. I mean, he's a great player, but you're now your biggest question mark is at the most important position. So the unknown there is just too much to. I mean, Broncos fans would be throwing up in their mouth, even though they're getting a great player at that spot.
All right, the Raiders at 13. Another organization desperate for quarterback. When 6 go in the top 8, you can't get one. I went with McConkey. McConkey, wide receiver out of Georgia. Yeah, he's not the biggest receiver and all that. The dude's fast. He's quick. He's sudden. He gets open. Unbelievable instincts. Explosive after the catch. Can get down the field vertically. 69 catches so far as a rookie, Muench. 960 yards. He's going to clip 1,000 yards receiving. 5 touchdowns so far. And I get it. They've got a very competent quarterback in Justin Herbert with the Chargers. He was the 34th overall pick. Thought it was a little bit late, but I wasn't screaming bloody murder. I thought it was a little bit late. I had him as one of the 32 best players in this last year's class. But if you took him at 13, given what we know, seeing him do it in the NFL, I think that this would be the right pick for the Raiders.
Love lad. Think he moves up. Don't hate this pick here. Rome Odunze, I think, might still be the guy that I favor over him. And I just you look at Rome and you maybe don't love the numbers. The numbers are very similar to Harrison's numbers in Arizona, by the way. He's the third option there. He's third in targets. I think McConkey's more of a focal point for that offense. I think if you put a Odunze again, this is the difficult thing to do. If player A was in player B's situation, if player B was in player A's situation, what exactly would happen? I love Lad. I don't think this is a bad pick. Maybe go with Rome here because again, spinning it forward, I still have high hopes for Rome Odunze. So I think that, and he's not far out of your top 16. I don't think, to be clear. But that being said, I think there's a debate to have between those two receivers at that spot.
All right, I'm going to rip through these final 3 picks, and you can, whatever jumps out to you, let me know. Okay?
Okay.
This is where the run on defensive linemen would occur. It started at 15 last year, if you remember, with Latu coming off the board of the Colts at 15. And then it was Dallas Turner, 16. Then 2 picks later, it was Jared Verse to the Rams at 19. And then Chop Robinson to the Dolphins at 21. So that's where the run happened. Just one pick later, it started. Here we would have 3 in a row. Jared Verse has been sensational. I would take him if I were the New Orleans Saints at number 14. Obviously, you look back and Talise Fuaga was the offensive tackle they drafted. I just think if you can be guaranteed at arguably the second most important position, and offensive tackle is a position of priority, but if you can be guaranteed to get a pass rusher that's going to deliver, I would bump him up from the 19th pick, as I just mentioned, to 14 here to the Saints. He 63 tackles, 4.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles this year. He's been outstanding for the Rams. Number 15, I just mentioned Latu, edge from UCLA, going number 15 overall. He went to the Colts originally. I'd keep him with the Colts. I would consider Cooper DeJean here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I would consider that. They also need offensive line help. When you start looking down at J.C. Latham, you could bump him inside. Fashanu, you could bump him inside. Fuaga, bump him inside if that's what they wanted to do. Dominic Pooney, the guard from Kansas, 3rd round pick. We'll get to some of the guys who I think have moved up into the 1st round range. So there are different guys that you could plug that hole with. But to me, if you talk about just an edge rusher and a guy that has shown a lot of flashes. He hasn't been brilliant like Verse, but 27 tackles, 4 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. That's what he does. He knocks that ball out. So Latu at 15, and then at number 16, Seattle Seahawks. I would actually swap defensive tackles from Texas. Byron Murphy was their pick. He's been good. He's been solid. Tavondre Sweat went 2nd round, 38th pick overall. I would take him here. Most snaps by a rookie defensive lineman this year is what I read yesterday. I was not aware of that.
That's insane for his size.
For his size.
That was a concern coming in.
Yes.
You wouldn't be able to play that amount of snaps.
Yes. 43 tackles. He's never going to be a huge sack guy, but the impact that he has taking double teams away, pushing the pocket.
Stiff arming dudes in the open field.
Yeah, maybe the run of the year for Sweat. But 43 tackles, a sack, and a forced fumble this year. So Saints taking Verse the edge. Colts staying with Latu as an edge. And Seattle with Sweat at defensive tackle. 3 defensive linemen with those final 3 picks, 14, 15, 16. What do you think, Muench? What jumps up?
I love it. The one pick I would consider, and again, devil's advocate a little bit here. Verse and Latu, I'm on board 100%. Seattle, what do you think about Chop Robinson maybe as the edge who's really come on as of late? And I think if you're spinning it forward, he's played really well recently. And then you spin it forward to what I think he could be, and you're getting another edge, more of an impact player, I think, than maybe the interior guy. Love Sweat there.
That scheme well too.
Yeah. So I kind of like the Chop pick there a little bit. But I don't hate any of that. I think it's all good.
All right. It was fun exercise. frustrating for some organizations, tantalizing for others. If you're watching on YouTube right now, you can see the top 16 picks. I wanted to get to 2 other lists, as you can see them there. Just to give, I want to give credit to these guys, because when you see a player like J.C. Latham get bumped out from 7th to not in the top 16, let's go through the list of guys who got bumped out. And I think the only reason I'm going through this list, if it was a disaster for some of these players as rookies, or if they really failed, or whatever the case would be, I just wouldn't bring this up. But this is shaping up to be a damn good draft class. When we look back 3 years, everyone does the organizational, the look back, the self-assessing. We'll give it 3 years so you can truly figure out, who those players have become. Where did we miss? What were we wrong on? Why? Let's self-scout. Let's be better. I think in 3 years, when we get to that benchmark, we're going to look back and be like, this class, we knew it was a good class. We knew it had a lot of quarterbacks and all that. I don't think we realized how good this class could wind up becoming. J.C. Latham gets bumped out of the top 16. He's played pretty well for Tennessee, man. Rome Odunze, horrible situation. Hasn't been great, but you can see the future there for Rome in Chicago as the 9th overall pick. Olu Fashanu has rotated in and played in different spots. He's been absolutely, I would call his rookie year a success, unless you've seen something that I haven't seen. Talise Fuaga, offensive tackle for New Orleans, same, solid. Byron Murphy, I just mentioned. Those are the 5 guys that went in the top 16 that would not go in the top 16, that did not go in this 2024 NFL redraft. But all, none of them, you were like, oh, this is ugly. It might be a bust.
Right.
And then finally, other guys I would just wanted to give some love to, if we didn't already mention them, and we mentioned a couple. I'm not saying these would all be first rounders, but they're all guys that got drafted later or a lot later than they would now if we had a redraft. Cooper DeJean would not go 40th overall. He fell in.
No.
The Eagles had 2. It was like a miracle. Howie Roseman cashed in. That's what great GMs do. Ozzie Newsome was the king of this. Be patient, sit back, wait, let everyone else go screw up the draft and let someone fall to us. In fact, maybe we'll move back a few more picks. We trust our board that well. Howie did a phenomenal job being patient, identifying players. They get 2 great defensive backs. Cooper DeJean has been outstanding in his own right for the 40th overall pick. He would be a first-round pick. Dominic Pooney, guard out of Kansas. I know he's a guard, so you can't say, well, he would be a top 20 pick lock. He's played like one. But San Francisco certainly getting him in round 3 at pick 86 overall. It was a coup. Zach Frazier, center from West Virginia, 51st overall pick. That's about where centers go, unless they're just exceptional, extraordinary. He's played like that. I think he'd be a first-round pick. Bucky Irving, running back out of Oregon. He's been awesome, man. Even watching him loss on Sunday night, and I know he's got dinged up a little bit before that, but 4th-round pick, 125 overall, get out of here. He'd be the late first-round pick. It's just as a running back, but he's played like one of the, 20 best rookies this year probably. Tarheeb Still, I don't know that he'd be a first-rounder, but he was the 2nd pick in the 5th round. The Chargers got him. Tremendous pick there. Coming out of Maryland, still has been an impact player for the Chargers. Tyke Smith, the defensive tackle from Ohio State. Round 3, 89 overall is where he went for Tampa Bay. He's had a great year. He might be first round, second round. He'd go higher than 89 overall. And same for Drew Phillips, cornerback from Kentucky. Those are all guys. He went 70th overall to the New York Giants. Those are all guys that have absolutely outplayed where they were drafted. And had we done this exercise all the way through the first round, which would have been exhausting for us and more importantly for the audience, they would have been in consideration. So this has been fun, brother. We're back. Okay. This is airing on Christmas Day, is my understanding. A lot of people won't get to it that day. You may be listening on the 26th or the 27th. We appreciate everyone who does. First and foremost, as I said earlier, we love what we're doing now. This is the most exciting and fun I've ever had in my professional career. And so every time you click on this show, everyone who's subscribed, every time you like, every time you mention to a friend, we can't appreciate it enough because we're here to stay. We're going to be doing this for a long time and hopefully get better, as some of the commenters might agree. But we appreciate you. We want everyone to enjoy their holidays. But when you're done with Christmas and you're done with all the family gatherings and the parties and the events, we're back on the 30th. Okay. Preview all of those round 2 college football games. And then I can't wait. You thought it was fun after round 1. We have 2 games that are going to be phenomenal. I'll be shocked. We have 2 games that are going to be phenomenal. Still have 2 matchups where it's double-digit spreads, but we got Ohio State, Oregon to review on after the primetime game on January 1st. You're going to be licking your wounds. Many of you may be, hungover from the night before. We'll be there to guide you through January 1 that night after the games. You got Notre Dame, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon. Should be 2 great games. I mean, those are just everything you dream of. Arizona State, Texas, maybe not so much, but it's going to be interesting. Penn State, Boise State. Can't wait to see Ashton Genty against that defense. I mean, that's a scouting dream with a player like that. So until the 30th, when we're back previewing all of those games, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Christmas. Happy holidays from the Muench family, the McShay family, to all of you. We'll see you soon. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.